An insider from one of the world's largest exchanges just exposed America's plan to buy $100 billion worth of Bitcoin. The only bad news is there's only $250 billion of Bitcoin left on exchanges, and Saylor just announced a new game-changing $84 billion raise to buy more Bitcoin. And also, today I got one of the most bullish content creators in the game who has been getting a lot of heat lately for why he thinks he can retire on 0.1 Bitcoin. So we'll be chatting about that throughout the episode. But Luke, let me bring him in. But Luke, before we go too far, can you just sum up the controversy before I play the Coinbase leak? So you have been getting a lot of a lot of heat around this idea. Sum this up real quick, and then we'll chat about this Coinbase clip.
Yes, I've even got a lot of heat for saying and running the numbers for why I think 0.01 Bitcoin,
oh, wow,
1% of a Bitcoin could be enough to retire. And I think that's all just because a lot of people haven't run the numbers. So again, I've copped a lot of heat this week. So I've gone back to the drawing board. I've looked at the numbers. I've crunched some equations. And I'm going to be sharing with you guys 3 different simulations and assumptions and hypothetical thought experiments for why I do still truly believe that 0.01 Bitcoin is enough to retire. And I think it actually does relate to the most recent news we're going to be talking about today with this Coinbase insider dropping a little bit of a bombshell in the Bitcoin space.
Yeah, well, I guess I undersold it. I thought it was 0.1 Bitcoin, but he said, again, clearly 1 million sats. Absolutely crazy. So we're going to be chatting about that all day. We'll link it with the beginning of this clip right here, and then we'll kind of expand it a little more during the culture. But here we go. Here's the clip you're waiting for. Let's run it.
So today, because of law, the U.S. government still values gold that it holds in Fort Knox at $42 and change, right? Now, if they were to just mark that to market, so it's worth probably an incremental 900 billion to $1 trillion, right? Now, if you look in the public press on Twitter, most people suspect that it will revalue it and then sell some gold to maybe go buy some Bitcoin. We don't think that that's the most likely case. We believe it's most likely that at some point, it could be this year, they will go and change it such that they will revalue gold to current market pricing. That would create a mark-to-market gain of $900 billion, right? And if you look at, I think the Senator Lummis bill was calling for buying, I think it's 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. Well, that's $100 billion, if I have the math right. So our back of the envelope is that when the revaluation occurs, that creates a $900 billion, given today's market price, mark-to-market gain, which then is money that the Treasury could then take. And then the Treasury would be able to use that money in the Sovereign Wealth Fund in a budget-neutral manner to go and buy a variety of things, we think probably including Bitcoin. And just to think about the math, $100 billion of 900 billion doesn't sound like that much. But the asset is about a $1.8 trillion asset. And if we go from no longer selling, right, which we just did, to here's a way by which we can actually take on a meaningful position, it's hard to see a situation where other governments don't feel compelled in some way to measure up.
And
right?
then you have this arms race, as it were.
I don't know if it's an arms race, but it
absolutely interesting. I have not heard that take yet. And I thought obviously $100 billion buy from the U.S. government would be huge. And as you can hear towards the end, it would be setting off this nation state game theory. Now, I do want to talk about the multiplier effect in a minute, Luke, because he was basically referencing that without actually saying it. But I do want to cover this Saylor story real quick. So yesterday, MicroStrategy, aka MicroStrategy, MicroStrategy, they had their quarterly earnings call, and some huge numbers came out of it. So Strategy announces a BTC yield of 13.7% and Bitcoin dollar gain of $5.8 billion year to date. And this is the crazy part, and doubles capital plan to $42 billion of equity and $42 billion of fixed income to purchase Bitcoin, and increases BTC yield target from 15% to 25%, and Bitcoin dollar gain target from $10 billion to $15 billion. So Luke and I were kind of going back and forth earlier. It was like, does this mean $84 billion buy of Bitcoin? As Luke has been, very, I would say, infamous for saying lately, he's also in probably the next biggest, controversy on Twitter right now, which is the whole Bitcoin on exchanges meme that is, playing out right now. So before we chat about this, I did see this good tweet here. This guy's actually been kind of killing it. It came out of nowhere personally, but he's been doing some really good tweets on Twitter, Adam Livingston. And he goes, Michael Saylor declares $84 billion monetary conquest. He goes, Strategy isn't playing your quarterly EPS clown game. Saylor is reprogramming the monetary operating system of Earth using a $42 billion equity plus $42 billion fixed income railgun to vaporize fiat and funnel it directly into Bitcoin. This is a geopolitical time weapon. Now, I think I just like this framing here. It's very poetic. But as we've been talking about, we're seeing that Jack Mallers just came out with 21 Capital. We're seeing that Michael Saylor is like frantically trying to buy more and more Bitcoin. And now we're getting, I would say some credible rumors. Remember, Coinbase is basically the custody for every one of these ETFs and all the big holders. So some credible leaks or insider rumors that this is most likely the avenue and route that the U.S. government would use to buy Bitcoin. And I actually have a new clip this morning coming out of Senator Lummis that I'll play in the numbers soon. The TLDR is, at what point does the price start ripping? Because there's not that much Bitcoin, period. We did the numbers yesterday. We ran the numbers. There's about, what was it, Luke? 1.2 million Bitcoin left for the next, 100 years plus. And it does look like the Bitcoin on exchanges is going down. Now, I'm not the biggest proponent of Bitcoin on exchange meme, because I think there will always be a seller of Bitcoin at any price. But we are seeing that the exchanges are getting depleted, and it begs the question, who is buying this Bitcoin, or rather, where is this Bitcoin going? Is it getting funneled into, corporate treasuries? Is it getting funneled into ETFs? Where is the Bitcoin going currently? Where is the capital sloshing around to? But the point remains the same. When you get a fixed supply monetary asset like Bitcoin, and it meets incredible demand, at some point it has to rip, even if there is quote unquote paper Bitcoin in the arena. So things are getting interesting. And we're also, the price is responding pretty good today. We got up to like 97. It seems like, as we've been saying for a minute, Bitcoin is about to explode. So we're starting to get frothy here. We're starting to get excited. I know everyone says the price doesn't matter. Guys, we all love the price. Let's just be honest here. Everyone loves the price. This is how we get more people into Bitcoin. Anyways, I've been rambling a little too much. So Luke, let's go with let's talk about the multiplier effect, Bitcoin on exchanges, and then if you want to do a short rip on, retire on Bitcoin, or how much Bitcoin is actually going to be, let's go there. So the arena's yours now, your podium.
Yeah, so we're going to let's actually talk about how much Bitcoin I truly think you need to retire. Maybe a little bit later on in the show, because people are probably going to think I'm nuts when I reveal those numbers.
Yeah. The numbers you told me this morning, I'm like, you're tripping.
And these numbers will make more sense when we play hypothetical thought experiments like we're going to play today. So again, what is the multiplier effect? Well, the multiplier effect just shows that for every $1 that wants to flow into Bitcoin, it actually pushes the market cap of Bitcoin up by a multiple. Okay, $1 in does not equal $1 of market cap increase. And that's because Bitcoin is very rare Bitcoin is very scarce, and not all 21 million Bitcoin are available for sale. So today, there's about 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges, and the liquid and highly liquid supply of Bitcoin is somewhere around 3.5 to 4 million Bitcoin. These are the coins that have moved in the past 6 months through all of Bitcoin's volatility, and these are the Bitcoin actually available for sale. So it's really about 15 to 20% of Bitcoin's entire 21 million supply is actually available for sale. And this is why we have a multiplier effect. And today, that is at an all-time high. That's at about 5.8x. Never been higher in Bitcoin's life. So for every $1 that wants to flow into Bitcoin, this pushes the multiplier effect up. Today, it's at 6x. So for every $1 in, Bitcoin sees a 6x increase in its market cap. So that's what the multiplier effect is. And it's a pretty basic premise. The less Bitcoin there is available for sale and the less Bitcoin there is available on exchanges, the higher this multiplier effect is going to rise. And this isn't just theory. I know a lot of people say, oh, these are just hypothetical thought experiments of a 28-year-old loser with a really bad haircut. No, it's just look at the fact and the maths. Later, we're going to show you the chart of the multiplier effect. And you can see since 2020, since the year I think something fundamentally changed in Bitcoin, since we saw coins begin leaving the exchanges for the first time in Bitcoin's life for 5 straight years, the multiplier effect has hit new all-time highs nearly every year. So it hit its highest level ever in the 2021 bull market of about 4.5x. And then again, a couple of years later in this bull run, it's now hit a new all-time high of 5.8x. Pre-2020, it never got above 3x. So again, we are seeing right now the supply suffocation. It's been going on for 5 years. It is triggering the multiplier effect to hit new all-time high levels that we've never seen before. And even right now, I feel a little bit of a sense of urgency because right now there is what? $250 billion of Bitcoin on exchanges. And in the past 24 hours alone, Michael Saylor has announced another $84 billion Bitcoin buy. And Coinbase, as we heard from that clip, they're kind of saying, hey, America could, in a budget neutral way, buy $100 billion worth of Bitcoin. So quick maths tells me that's $180 billion worth of demand for Bitcoin. And there's only $250 billion worth of Bitcoin on exchanges. And what you have to remember is as this buying continues, price is going to go up. So that means, there's not $250 billion of Bitcoin on exchanges. This is it's going to create a little bit of a flywheel. And I think we're going to see an acceleration in this supply suffocation. And again, something that's really interesting, when Saylor came out 6 months ago with his plan to buy $42 billion worth of Bitcoin, firstly, most people thought he was crazy. Most people said he's never going to do this. And when this first came out, it was supposed to be a 3-year plan. Yeah. Michael bought those $42 billion worth of Bitcoin in about 3 months, not 3 years. So now he's saying, look, $84 billion buy. How long is this going to take? I don't know, but if I was a betting man, it's probably 3 to 6 months. If he accumulates at the same pace over the past 3 to 4 to 5 months, he'll be finished this buy in about 6 to 7 months. So that'll be before the end of the year. And we also know America is not mucking around. America, again, they're talking about creating a sovereign wealth fund right now for the country. Everybody, I saw on Twitter this morning, Trump is supposedly supporting Senator Lummis's plan.
Yeah, we're going to play that clip for everyone.
Oh, we got the clip. We won't reveal the clip yet, but I'm essentially feeling tinglings in all parts of my body. And I do think like there is a little bit of urgency here with what I think we're seeing play out.
Pause. I was going to say, this is a family-friendly show, Luke. You got to chill out a little bit. But yes, I'm also feeling my oracles tell me that the price is about to pump. That one thing you did say that I think is very interesting, and I forget when we were talking about it. Maybe it was sometime this week or last week, but the idea of like there's always this sense of urgency when you get into Bitcoin. Like right when it clicks, you're like, holy cow, I need to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. And I think Saylor, he's been in the game for what, 4 years now? He's obviously like the biggest whale. Everyone's wondering what he's doing with that Bitcoin. But you can tell that maybe it's because of 21 Capital announcement, Jack Mallers and Cantor Fitzgerald announcement, that even he's feeling the sense of urgency where he's like, yo, I need to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible right now because, you know, as we always say, once it gets above 100K, we may never see these prices again. And I think this is a perfect segue to get into the show. The takeaway here, guys, and we're going to chat about all of this in the culture segment at the end of the show about, you know, Luke's ridiculous predictions. You should have a sense of urgency right now. You should be wanting to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible because I'm also feeling like once it rips, it's going to be an incredible rip. So it seems to be upon us. Anyways, Luke, you want to chime in real quick?
Yeah, just quickly on that Jack Mallers news. They came out and they said, look, we want to launch with 42,000 Bitcoin. Obviously, you got a few different companies putting Bitcoin in a pool and a bucket. But what I think is really interesting is they're openly saying they want to be a MicroStrategy competitor. They want to buy more Bitcoin than Michael Saylor. They want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. And again, just think about the connections. We were kind of talking about the connections the other day on one of these live streams, but these are not players to be laughed at. These are serious players. They're backed by Tether. Again, they're what? A top 15 US treasury holder in the entire world. Tether is a part of this new Bitcoin treasury acquisition company. You got Jack Mallers, the man who was instrumental in helping with the El Salvador adoption of Bitcoin and creating Strike, one of the biggest Bitcoin companies in the world. And you've got Cantor Fitzgerald, the man in charge of creating America's sovereign wealth fund. Those three guys are coming together, these three parties, and they're creating a vehicle that is supposedly going to compete with MicroStrategy, who today nearly holds 600,000 Bitcoin. They're closing in on 3% of the total supply. What happens if you have a...
Oh, we lost Luke. All right. I'll try to get him back in. On that note, guys, let's keep it going. Let's keep ripping. Of course, guys, before we move on, oh, here he is. He's back. What's going on, bro?
I think the bullish calculations we were running today, Opti, they were just too bullish. My Google Chrome browser.
All right. Well, let's just keep it moving, and we'll chat more about this in the culture, guys. And again, just want to remind you guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. You know, comment on the video. It really does help push us in the algo to spread the Bitcoin signal. And of course, before we move on, we want to give a huge shout out to our boys over at bitcoinwell.com. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc and sign up for Bitcoin Well. It is the best Bitcoin only exchange possible because it is self-custody by default, which literally means they can never rug pull you ever. As we've seen in the history of Bitcoin, there's been a lot of cases where exchanges claim to have the Bitcoin that you bought from them, but they didn't, and they went under. Well, they never hold your Bitcoin. Once your payment goes through, it goes directly into your cold storage. So make sure you go to bitcoinwell.com, use the promo code simplybtc, and you can win. You get 3 chances to win 1 million sats. And on that note, let's go to the wishing well. When you get in there, you just come in here and your reward points. Pull out your Lightning wallets. First come, first serve. Let's see. Can we get 1 million sats live on the show? That would be crazy. That would be retiring money. Okay. 561 sats. First come, first serve. On that note, guys, we got a jam-packed show. So as Luke kind of previewed, we have a clip right out of this morning. Senator Lummis talking about Trump and, of course, the acquiring of Bitcoin. And then we have an interesting story coming out of BlackRock from some Token 2049 conference where the Bitcoin memes are getting out there, guys. The decoupling might be upon us. It's if you beam it, it will happen. And it looks like BlackRock is literally taking Bitcoin memes now. So interesting stuff. On that note, again, let's just dive into the show.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, guys, scan the QR code. Yeah, chat's killing me today. Yeah, guys, hey, I can only take so much trolling when I'm trying to handle the mothership here, guys. I'm getting roasted right now. All right, anyways, I'm over here on Clark Moody's dashboard going over the Bitcoin numbers. Of course, the current Bitcoin price is $97,560. I don't know if you guys are, TA boys chart trading out there, but it seems like we're back to a pretty good, support level. So I'm very interested to see if we can make an attempt to 103K by the end of the month. Anyways, the sats per dollar, aka how much the dollar is worth in Bitcoin, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, is currently at 1,025 sats. The current block height is 894,919. And the market cap, we are almost back at $2 trillion market cap. It's currently at 1.94 trillion. And the Bitcoin versus gold market cap, again, we are inching back towards 10% of the gold market cap, currently at 8.5. And the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued, I repeat, the total percentage of Bitcoin that will ever be issued is currently at 94.56%. So if you were trying to fact check us yesterday, there's roughly 5.4 something percent of total Bitcoin supply left. The current money supply or Bitcoin in circulation is around 19.85 million Bitcoin, and the realized monetary inflation taking fiat currencies to school is currently at 0.84%. Okay, so as I was saying, we got a new clip this morning, and I actually was going to put a different clip on. There was an interesting clip going around of CNN kind of fighting kind of fighting Trump in regards to Bitcoin and the importance of Bitcoin or crypto voters in the election. But then this dropped this morning, and I thought this would be a perfect segue from the topic in the beginning. So we have Senator Lummis this morning basically saying that Donald Trump seems to be backing her plan to buy 1 million Bitcoin. So let's watch it.
I'm particularly pleased with President Trump's support of my strategic Bitcoin reserve initiative, which will address our national debt while securing America's position as the global leader in financial innovation. As Bitcoin comes into more usage, its use makes the whole system more secure, more robust, and more capable of serving our needs all over the world. We should be the global leader with this fantastic new ledger-based asset that is in a digital format that is going to be transformative of everyday economy and puts the everyday American, in fact, the everyday worker all over the world in control of their own money. What a wonderful blessing for hardworking people all over the world to have this great new technology and to have America lead the way in implementing this wonderful.
Interesting. So confirmation here that this isn't just talk. I know a lot of people have been saying ever since Trump got elected, actually, we're probably at we just passed 100 days of the new Trump presidency. And, in regards to Bitcoin or, crypto, they follow through with a lot of what they're talking about. Obviously, there's still no follow through on actually acquiring Bitcoin through this SBR, but it seems like Trump is either interested in it or he's fully backing the idea. Now, of course, it has to actually get passed, and that'll be another hurdle that we have to cross. But it is interesting to see, not only is Trump, the man himself, very bullish on Bitcoin, but we've seen the whole Trump family be extremely bullish on Bitcoin. And I don't think that that's just a passing fad. Like, I think that they are getting swept up in, maybe you could say, the, crypto mania. But I think if any family would understand Bitcoin, it would be the Trump family, considering all of the lawfare that they had to deal with, getting debanked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, even though they do have the stain of the Trump coin here, it looks like they came out like a bandit through it. So of course they're getting caught up in it. Now I really want to see them follow through on more Bitcoin, pro Bitcoin only policies, of course. I'm still kind of on the fence of them actually, acquiring the Bitcoin in the SBR. But I guess as long as they're, I don't know, I'm conflicted because I do like the meme. Hey, if a government sells their Bitcoin, that's the true separation of money and state. So part of me is like, I don't know if I want them to buy Bitcoin. Because I'm not here to continue the fiat dominance around the world. Like, I'm here to propagate Bitcoin. But with them coming in Bitcoin and making this huge announcement, like, it would be a complete game changer if they announce tomorrow or by end of year or something. It actually has to probably happen sooner than later because the midterms are in about a year and a half away, or a little more than a year and a half. And we know then they're not going to do anything crazy because they're trying to get reelected here. But if they announce this soon, I think that would be huge for the geopolitical game theory here. Like, having the stamp of approval of the United States, the most powerful financial house in the world or financial economy in the world, that is a huge signal to people of, you need to buy Bitcoin. You need to get off zero. You need to acquire Bitcoin. At the very least, you need to try to understand Bitcoin. And this is where we are. Yes, a lot of Bitcoin purists are like, you guys keep talking about, banks buying Bitcoin or the nation state buying Bitcoin, bro. Like, I thought this is a separation of money and state. Guys, we can't stop this. As Lynn Alden always says, there is no stopping this train. People are incentivized to understand Bitcoin. And once you get it, once you grok it, you want to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. They're just like us, just on, financial steroids here. So, hey, this is where we are. If this follows through, as Lummis was saying, and Trump really wants to back this acquiring of 1 million Bitcoin, obviously that's going to be way more sell or buy pressure than we even have here. They won't even probably be able to get to 1 million Bitcoin. But hey, it's going to mean our bags get pumped. I don't know. Are we are we okay with being the new Nancy Pelosi's, or what's going on here? I don't know. Luke, what's your thoughts on this clip from Senator Lummis?
Yeah, well, you make a good point. Will they be able to even get to the 1 million Bitcoin? That's my big question. I think they're going to really struggle to get to 1 million Bitcoin. But again, even if there's any sort of announcement of a 100,000 Bitcoin buy, a 200,000 Bitcoin buy, or 1 million Bitcoin buy, this is going to it's going to really send FOMO to the next level. We've been talking about it for a long time. And when it finally happens, I think it's going to happen a lot quicker than most people think. I think a lot of people are caught offside today in 2025. I think a lot of people are being lulled into the narrative that hyper-Bitcoinization is going to be a 10, 15, 20, 30-year project. It's going to be very long. We're going to have a lot of time to prepare. I think a lot of people think they can multiply their Bitcoins by trading these cycles and, selling Bitcoin at 150 or 200,000 and rebuying it at 110,000 because some physicist drew some fancy lines on a chart, and this is going to happen because maths and science. And I just think a lot of people are going to get absolutely blown out of the water. I think a lot of people are going to sell their Bitcoin way too soon, way too early. People are going to fumble the ball. They're going to let us hand their generational wealth, and they're going to wish they held their Bitcoin for a lot longer than they actually did. So again, I think all of this is accelerating. It's crazy. Michael Saylor buying another $84 billion worth of Bitcoin. I can't believe more people are not talking about this. I haven't dived into the nitty and the gritty of the details, but if I had to guess, it's probably going to happen much quicker than the advertised, time frame that Michael is publicly putting out there. So yeah, I'm incredibly bullish, and I'm really excited to see what happens next here, Opti.
Yeah, well, you just reminded me of something. So I'm over here on Perplexity, kind of running the numbers, and you guys could fact check me here. I'm using an AI browser really quick, and I usually fact check them, but I got enough to kind of make this point. So I'm over here on Perplexity, and I just asked, how much has Saylor spent buying Bitcoin? And apparently the result so far is Michael Saylor, through his company Strategy, has spent approximately $36.47 billion buying Bitcoin, and he's acquired, I think this isn't fully updated because he just announced another one, and now he's up at like, I think 555,000 Bitcoin. Anyways, the point remains, and this is the point that I was going to make. If he's able to, as Luke is saying, deploy this $84 billion of capital, then, quick math here. It looks like Saylor is going to have 1 million coins. Like, what's that going to do? If Saylor is able to double his total holdings of Bitcoin at Strategy in a short period of time, I don't know, guys. This does seem like rocket fuel, and we may see these Omega candle, Godzilla candles, whatever you want to call them. Like, this is just insane math here. If this happens quickly, he's gonna, like, there's not that much coin. How is he gonna get another 500,000 coin in a very short time? Like, he's gonna have as much Bitcoin in his company treasury as all of the ETFs do on Wall Street. Like, this stuff is insane. It literally blows your mind once you try to understand what's going on. Like, he's gonna spend what, 1.5 what he's already spent on this new spend to just acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. Like, if that doesn't put on the FOMO and you feel like, I need to get more, I don't know what does. Like, Saylor already has, I guess I would argue, maybe one of the biggest, I think he's the biggest treasury. He owns more Bitcoin than countries at this point. And he's like, wait, I'm not done. Like, he's out here like Jordan dunking from the freaking free throw line. Like, I actually need to do 1.5 times more buying a Bitcoin. It's like, what is going on here? This can't sustain this price level the way it is. It's just, it makes no sense to me. It's going to go nuts.
Yeah, it's the scarcity angle. And this is why I think a lot of people are not as bullish as I hope they are. And I hope by the end of today's show, we're going to get to the numbers showing you guys just how much Bitcoin I think you need to retire. But when you really run the numbers and you look at the scarcity side of things, that's where I think a lot of people aren't prepared for what happens next. Like you say, Saylor's got 550, nearly 600,000 coins right now. And again, that's cool. That's great. Michael owns 3% of the supply. A lot of people be thinking, all right, who cares? There's a lot of whales in Bitcoin. But the really interesting part about this is he's openly saying he's not going to sell for 100 years. That's the seed I want to plant in people's minds for the culture section of today's live stream. Because if he wants to buy another $84 billion worth of Bitcoin, let's assume he gets to 1 million Bitcoin. And as our good friend of the show, Satwise, says in the chat, BlackRock also has a lot of Bitcoin. If these entities aren't selling their Bitcoin for a long amount of time, all of a sudden, what does that mean? Like, we know somewhere around 4 to 5 million Bitcoin are lost forever. If Saylor gets to 1 million Bitcoin, it's not a stretch. He's not that far away right now. That's all of a sudden another 1 million Bitcoin that, if we take Saylor at his word, again, hypothetical assumptions, never trust a CEO, never trust a politician. I get it. I'm a very distrusting person. But if we trust Saylor, and he's never going to sell his Bitcoin for 100 years, and the ETFs continue buying Bitcoin, and then we have companies like 21 trying to compete with Saylor, and they're probably also not going to be selling their Bitcoin. All of a sudden, you've got to really start thinking, hang on a minute, how much of that 21 million Bitcoin is actually available for sale and is actually going to circulate on a daily basis? That's the question I just want to let people stew on for the next 20 or 30 minutes here, Opti, before we start really running some numbers, because I just think people just aren't bullish enough.
Yeah, and like as Luke was telling me this morning, like, I thought I was bullish, and Luke, like, I literally was like, dude, you're crazy. Like, that is not even possible. And he's like, dude, once you run the numbers, it's not that crazy. And I'm like, okay. Anyways, we'll get to that in the culture. It's gonna blow your mind, and everyone literally. I saw someone say in the top of in the chat, it was like, I think Luke is just clickbait farming at this point because it used to be, 10 million sats and now it's 1 million sats. Hey, I think he's just updating his numbers and now he's just even more bullish than anyone possible. And I did do a poll in the chat. I said, who's more bullish, Luke or Sailor? And you were winning for a little bit, but you're losing to Sailor right now. So, I guess you got to amp up that bullishness by the end of the show. And we'll show that, hey, you may not have Sailor's infinite money glitch here, but Luke might be more bullish than Sailor. All right, guys. Anyways, let's get into the news for today.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, CoinKite. If you take your Bitcoin security seriously, you'll need the best Bitcoin hardware wallet on the market to take self-custody. That's where Cold Card comes in. The Cold Card Q is the most advanced Bitcoin signing device ever made. It's got a full keyboard, larger screen, and NFC support, making air-gap signing easier than ever. It's built for power users who want the ultimate security without sacrificing usability. And if you're looking for a battle-tested, uncompromising cold storage, the Cold Card MK4 is your go-to with PSBT signing, an industrial-grade secure element, and USB-C. It's the perfect blend of security and convenience. Both devices are, of course, 100% Bitcoin only, open source, and built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Secure your Bitcoin the right way with the Cold Card Q and the MK4. Head over to coldcard.com today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 5% off anything on the store.
All right, guys, scan the QR code and get yourself this sexy calculator, aka the Cold Card Q. All right, let's get into the story. I honestly, I really wanted to do today's show on this story right here, because I thought it really sums up all the conversations we had this week. But me and Luke came together and we're like, we got an even more bullish video topic for today. You already know, clickbait. What's your title?
My boy Brandon calls me the clickbait scammer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyways, let's cover this story real quick, and we'll chat about it. First of all, as I said earlier, it's very interesting now that the Bitcoin memes, it's our meme world, and now we're seeing that the biggest institutional asset managers in the world are literally talking like Bitcoiners, or at least listening to what we're saying and stealing our memes, which is, I think, one and the same. Anyways, I'm over here on DL News. I don't really know what DL News is, but they got I guess an exclusive quote here from BlackRock advisors. So the headline here is BlackRock says clients are watching Bitcoin for this, quote, absolutely critical driver, which literally sounds like one of Luke's titles over here. So, I don't know if Luke's working, night shifts over here and also working night shifts at Forwards, because Billy Bamball literally sounds like Luke now. Like the mainstream media is literally becoming Bitcoin clickbait scammers as well. So we're winning, guys. This is what winning looks like. Anyways, let's read this article here. So the bullet point is BlackRock saw an uptick in client interest after Bitcoin's, quote, decoupled from tech stocks, and Bitcoin's correlation to risky assets is key to its investment case, said the firm's crypto head. So BlackRock says Bitcoin will soon be risky not to own. literally what us Bitcoiners have been saying. I repeat, BlackRock says Bitcoin will soon be risky not to own. As we say all the time, the only winning play is to play the game and acquire Bitcoin. And if you're sitting on the sidelines or you're buying treasuries or gold, that's the real risk here. It's not about price volatility. The real risk is not owning Bitcoin. Anyways, that's if, and a big if, the price of the top cryptocurrency truly manages to break free of its tight correlation to riskier assets like U.S. tech stocks. Quote, the correlation between Bitcoin and tech stocks is going to be an absolutely critical driver. Robbie Mitchnick, dude, it literally sounds like Luke's last name too. That's crazy. Head of digital assets at BlackRock told DL News, quote, if Bitcoin trades more like a tech stock, it's not very interesting to institutions. But if Bitcoin trades with low or even negative correlation to what he calls left tail events or extreme bouts of downside risks, then it becomes potentially a very important portfolio asset to all manner of institutional portfolios. I repeat, guys, this isn't coming from, two guys on YouTube. Like, this isn't coming from Simply Bitcoin. This is coming from BlackRock, the biggest institutional manager in the world. As the meme always goes, what Larry Fink wants, Larry Fink gets. He's literally saying, if Bitcoin decouples, it will become a very important part of your portfolio. So for all of your uncles and, grandmas and grandpas and parents out there that are like, oh no, this Bitcoin thing is insignificant. Now you have literally BlackRock saying it might be the most important thing you can be owning today, which is literally what Bitcoiners have been saying forever. Added Mitchnick, who wrote the comments following his appearance at the Token 2049 crypto conference, quote, then the conversation goes from, is this too risky for us, to might it be risky not to own any? It's sounding like a Bitcoin shill here. Bitcoin backers are optimistic as the coin performance continues to, quote, decouple from equities and begins to stand on its own as a relatively low volatility asset. The disconnect is a signal to some that the cryptocurrency is starting to behave like a safe haven, like gold, and not riskier assets. Mitchnick's comment came during Token 2049, a cryptocurrency conference in Dubai this week, where he appeared next to Bloomberg ETF analyst Eric Balkunis. And then Balkunis later spoke more about the discussion with Mitchnick, and he said, larger institutions, they're looking for digital gold. What they want is a safe haven, indestructible money, something that can hedge inflation and the market. Balkunis recounted the panel conversation and, quote, goes, decoupling will be, quote, long-term or good long-term, not just for the ETF, but Bitcoin in general. Of course, BlackRock is the biggest institutional manager in the world, and now they're doing the show here. But I thought this was huge. I think this is a huge, shot across the bow, or whatever that phrasing is here. Like, this is huge signal to me, because again, BlackRock's the biggest institutional manager. They're now literally sounding like Bitcoiners. And I know there's been some back and forth on this idea of whether Bitcoin actually decoupled or not. And I know we all say, like, on a long enough time frame, Bitcoin will decouple, but it currently does kind of act like a leveraged tech stock. But we've seen that correlation breaking in the last couple of weeks when, everything seems to be breaking around us. Gold's been pumping. We're seeing the stock market's been struggling a little bit. Bitcoin is holding on very well. Now we're seeing Bitcoin start to pump right now. And a lot of people have been saying, Bitcoin's going to follow global M2 supply. And it seems to be doing that, but with, 90-day delay. And it seems to be following it really well. So again, the critical asset, or the critical indicator here, is, can Bitcoin decouple and be treated or viewed and used as a safe haven asset? And if that happens, which is really this whole conversation we're talking about today, is this idea that if people are feeling uncertainty about the dollar, then obviously they are going to be looking at an alternative like Bitcoin. And there is actually, a lot of evidence to this case here, that people are looking for different ways to store value, not treasuries, not gold. Maybe they're just jumping into the new altcoins, which are all the Bitcoin stocks. But we are seeing that the move away from the dollar is starting to really make waves around the world. People are starting to wake up. Like, the world is splitting in two, the fiat standard and the Bitcoin standard. And if institutions no longer see Bitcoin as just, a tech beta play, it's now the hedge against US dollar decline. And Bitcoin isn't a risk on asset anymore. It's like, as we always say, it's literally a fork from the old system. It's a parallel safety boat here, and it seems like people are waking up to this. So I don't know. I thought this is huge, and obviously, hey, we know what happened with Larry Fink here. He's basically piling in all his customers to Bitcoin. I think they're making their bet on Bitcoin, and it doesn't necessarily make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside when Larry Fink is like going full Bitcoin. Maybe Jim in the Rumble chat is right. Maybe we are building our cashless dystopia here, because if Larry Fink's becoming a Bitcoiner, it should make us pause. Anyways, I've been ranting enough. Luke, what's your thoughts on this? Is this as big of a deal, or rather, is this one of those things that like just no one's paying attention to just because it's like whatever, Larry Fink?
I think it's a continuation of what I think is probably the most important adoption marker in Bitcoin. So a lot of people look at adoption, and I think they look at adoption wrong. We're going to get to adoption more in a minute and how Larry Fink fits into this. But Larry Fink, world's largest asset manager, head of BlackRock, $10 trillion and more in assets under management, he's slowly but surely confirming that he's a Bitcoiner. Every couple of months, he goes on news and he says Bitcoin's digitizing gold, it's a legitimate asset, or he publishes another report. A couple of months ago, BlackRock published a report where they said you need a 2% allocation to Bitcoin. A couple of months later, BlackRock comes out and they says, yeah, we've actually included Bitcoin in one of our model portfolios that the entire world and thousands of hedge funds look at and try to copy what BlackRock is doing. Every couple of months, we see something new coming out from BlackRock, and now they're saying it's risky to not own Bitcoin. I think that's telling. I think that's huge. I think this is just yet another signal of why I think adoption is going to be quicker than most people think. So everybody looks at Bitcoin adoption and they're looking at it wrong, I think. I think everybody's measuring medium of exchange adoption. I think everybody's thinking, okay, hyper-Bitcoinization and $10 million Bitcoin. It happens when my friends in my mainstream circle are buying coffees with Bitcoin, and they're thinking of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and a unit of account. And I think this is a complete wrong way to think about adoption. I think it's dangerously setting a lot of people up with complacency. Because I think the real thing that sends Bitcoin to $10 million is the asset managers. It is how rapidly and what portion of the world's hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, nation states, and billionaires are buying Bitcoin, because these are the guys who are going to actually make an impact on adoption. These guys own the majority of the world's wealth. Again, this is actually going to tie into what we're going to talk about in the culture section. But wealth distribution follows a Pareto's principle. So typically, Pareto's principle says 20% of the things will give you 80% of the results. Now, wealth typically follows something similar. Typically, about 20% of the people own 80% of the stuff. Because we've been living in this fiat standard for so long, it's even more skewed than that. So really, it's like the top 1% own 50% of the world's wealth. And Bitcoin, I believe, is going to have two adoption curves. The first is going to be the store value or the monetization adoption curve. So how many of the people who control the majority of the world's wealth, the $900 trillion of assets, what percentage of these guys are adopting Bitcoin? Okay, and I think these guys are adopting Bitcoin much quicker than the everyday Joe, the everyday Jane, the guys who I think are going to be last to adopt Bitcoin. And I think my base case right now is that we actually see Bitcoin priced at $10 million per coin with global adoption less than 5%. And I get it, hold the tomatoes. I don't want this to happen. But if the trend over the past 5 years continues, I think we're going to see that world before 2030. And I know how crazy that sounds. I know everybody's saying, oh, but my power law tells me, in 2033, Bitcoin is going to be $1 million a coin. I just don't think that's going to be how Bitcoin gets adopted. I think typically the markets in general take the course of most pain, max pain. Okay. And I think max pain is Bitcoin's adopted by 5% of the globe and it's at $10 million a coin. So I genuinely think that is what's going to happen if the past 5 years of data continues to happen over the next 5 years. And I just think Larry Fink coming out and saying what he's saying about Bitcoin is only going to accelerate this trend. And I think it's a massive signal that, yes, we kind of have data of who's been buying the Bitcoin. Because Larry Fink wouldn't be pumping Bitcoin so aggressively if him and his small, circle of insider buddies weren't absolutely loaded to the tilts with Bitcoin. If they hadn't loaded up their bags, I don't think you would see so much public embracement and pumping of Bitcoin like we're seeing from all of these largest banks, the largest asset managers. I think they've finally got their stash after they attacked Bitcoin and crashed and suppressed the Bitcoin price through 2021, 2022, and 2023. I think all of the attacks you saw in that time frame, I believe strongly that it's all a ploy by the big boys to load up their bags. Because I think pre-2020, these guys didn't know anything about Bitcoin. They thought Bitcoin was a joke. And then I think 2020 kind of changed everything. And then I think for the first time, we saw Bitcoin rip in 2020 from like 10K to 65K in what 3 months at the tail end of 2020 going into early 2021. And I think a lot of these big guys were like, oh, hang on a minute. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, is buying Bitcoin, putting it on his balance sheet. We have a billionaire like Michael Saylor buying Bitcoin and putting it on the balance sheet of a public corporation. And we have little countries in El Salvador right now buying Bitcoin and creating a Bitcoin legal tender law. This is scary. Maybe we need to own some of this stuff. And again, I've been screaming about this from the rooftops for years. I think they've been actively attacking the price. I think somebody tapped China on the shoulder in early 2021 to do what they did. I think somebody tapped Larry Fink on the shoulder in early 2021 and said, hey, create this ESG narrative. We need to attack proof of work mining. We need to make Bitcoin mining sound dirty and make it sound like it's boiling the oceans. We need to create a lot of FUD. We need to get states like the New York to propose 30% taxes on Bitcoin miners. We need to spread this narrative far and wide, attack the price of Bitcoin for the next few years, saying it's not ESG friendly, and we need to buy as much of it as we can. Just a crazy hypothetical speculation. But again, I think the big boys have loaded up, and I think they're probably ready to let it rip. So I just think the next 2, 3, 4 years in Bitcoin are going to be really consequential. I think they're going to be the most important years of Bitcoin's life.
I think that was a perfect way to tee up just literally what I'm gonna frame it this way. Probably the most insane bullish stuff I've heard in a long time. And it's our job here at Simply Bitcoin to be as bullish as possible, obviously, but I can't even I don't even hold, Luke's coat on this. He's all right. We're gonna go into the retire on 1 million sats controversy. This literally ridiculous price prediction that he was telling me this morning, and then we'll kind of chat about that. So I don't know if wait, let me look at the poll real quick. All right, you're losing to Sailor, bro. So you better up the bullishness. Here we go.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally not only have an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind.
Learn more about what your BTC can do for you today. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 0.25% off their first loan by using the link in the video/podcast description. What are you waiting for? Head over to ledn.io today.
All right, Luke. I think we're gonna start with this comment here from James Smith in the chat, and he goes, "Nothing better than Friday hopium." So maybe this is a new theme. You know how people do like casual Friday? Well, maybe we're gonna have to double down on Friday hopium going into the weekend. Actually, that's all we do. It shouts out to I think his name's like RB. He trolls us every day. He's like, they just do hopium every single day. Yes, we are your hopium dealers, and we are okay with this. This is why you come to Simply Bitcoin, is so you can escape the fiat brain rot and, hope for some optimistic futures here. It's optimist fields for a reason. Anyways, I'm, no more of me on my pedestal here. Anyway, Luke, where do you want to start with? Actually, I know how we're going to do this. Start with the ridiculous price prediction you gave me this morning. And if you forget, you were mentioning Peter Dunworth as well. So start there, and then we can go into the controversy on Twitter. Even people in the chat today were like, man, I am so tired of retire on 0.1 Bitcoin meme. But Luke seems to be lowering it, retire on 0.01 Bitcoin. So start with this ridiculous price prediction. Run through some of the math, explain yourself as best you can why you are so bullish.
Yes, I wanted to be very clear. The crazy thought experiment put out there by Peter Dunworth, my Australian buddy, who I think is actually the most bullish Australian and Bitcoiner in the whole world, that is not needed, or that is not what I'm basing my 0.01 Bitcoin retirement plan on. The two are completely separate. And if Peter's even directionally correct with the crazy numbers that he puts out there, you're going to need far less than 1% of a Bitcoin to retire. Far, far, far less, okay? So two separate things. So again, we don't need $1 billion Bitcoin to be able to retire with 0.01 Bitcoin, caveated. So Peter, for a long time, well over a year ago, I interviewed Peter maybe 2 years ago, and he walked me through a hypothetical thought experiment. And it got me thinking. Peter essentially said, look, when you really run the numbers and you think about this thought experiment of where does this supply suffocation go, what is a fair price of Bitcoin? And he walked me through it, right? And the thought experiment is an interesting one. He assumes, okay, what if there's only 1 million Bitcoin or even 100,000 Bitcoin available to buy? Like, he's essentially saying, look, I think there's going to be entities like Michael Saylor who hold 500,000 Bitcoin. And there's only really just going to be, like, the majority of the 21 million Bitcoin, it's going to be locked up by entities like Michael Saylor who want to hold it for 100 years. Or there's going to be millions of Bitcoin backing US Treasury notes. Or there's going to be sovereign nations all around the world with a few 100,000 Bitcoin in their treasuries, and they're just simply not going to sell it. I mean, if you're a Michael Saylor, a public company, or a nation state, you're not going to sell your Bitcoin. You're going to understand the value of Bitcoin. And like real estate in Manhattan 200 or 300 years ago, you never sell it. You always lend against it. So Peter's hypothesis just essentially says, look, hypothetically, what happens if all the Bitcoin was locked up? What happens if we're on a Bitcoin standard? Well, when you run those numbers, things get really interesting, because each day today in 2025, there's 450 Bitcoin mined a day. And depending upon how you measure it, there's trillions of dollars of economic activity that happens every day. China's buying oil from the Middle East. America's buying widgets from China. This happens all day, every day. And if you were to really crunch the numbers and have a look at, okay, let's assume we're on a Bitcoin standard, 450 Bitcoin are mined a day. The rest are locked up. We have trillions of dollars of economic activity that has to be facilitated by 450 Bitcoin. When you run those numbers, you're literally looking at a Bitcoin price tag of somewhere between $1 to $7 billion per Bitcoin. And again, this isn't hyperinflation. This is today's value of Bitcoin with the money and the economic activity available today. So that's the crazy price projection. That's the crazy hypothetical thought experiment. But let's be more conservative. So when I tell people I think you only need 1 million sats to retire, I'm more conservative. I'm saying, okay, there's 21 million Bitcoin. We understand that 4 million Bitcoin are lost forever. Let's assume one day that we get into a world where Michael Saylor holds 1 million or 2 million Bitcoin and he's not going to sell it for 100 years. I genuinely believe, conservatively, I don't think there's going to be any more than 4 million Bitcoin that circulates and is available to buy on a daily basis. I don't think there's going to be any more than that. I just feel like the logical endgame of Bitcoin is the majority of that supply is going to be in the treasuries of public companies like MicroStrategy, or it's going to be in the treasuries of nation states like America. So when you run the numbers and you assume there's 4 million out of the 21 million available to buy, and again, remember, there will be more and more Bitcoin lost into the future. Today, there's 4 million. I don't think it's crazy to say there could be 6 million or 7 or 8 million Bitcoin lost in the future. When you run these numbers, you assume there's 4 million Bitcoin that will circulate. And then you assume the same thing that we assumed earlier. Wealth distribution always follows a Pareto's principle distribution. Things get really interesting. Because when you run those numbers, all of a sudden you actually only need 0.015 Bitcoin. That's 1.5% of a Bitcoin to be in the new class of millionaires. So again, I did a whole video a couple of weeks ago breaking down this whole table of Pareto's principle distribution on a Bitcoin standard. And you can see there's 80 million people who will be able to own 0.015 Bitcoin. That's 1.5% of a Bitcoin. If you assume we're on a Bitcoin standard and 4 million Bitcoin are available for sale. I don't think they're crazy assumptions or crazy hypothetical thought experiments. And it's really it's very attainable for a lot of people today to buy 0.015 Bitcoin. What's that, about $1,500 worth today? So I genuinely believe buying $1,500 of Bitcoin today and self-custodying the Bitcoin today, that's the biggest hiccup. Again, a lot of the Bitcoin I think is going to be lost in the future from people not custodying their Bitcoin correctly or people trusting exchanges with their Bitcoin. I think so many people are going to think, okay, I've got my generational wealth, and they will make a pivotal mistake in between now and 5 or 10 years into the future. So again, the assumption, buy 1.5% of a Bitcoin today, $1,500 worth of a Bitcoin today, get it off exchanges, self-custody it, and learn what you own, hold it. And no, to green Firefly, you're not going to need 100 years. I think all of this happens in the next 15. I think things are going to happen much quicker than most people think. And that's just because of the supply suffocation. I mean, we've seen, 900,000 Bitcoin leave exchanges in the past 2 years. There's only 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges today. So if you extrapolate the past 2 years of data forwards, which is, I think that's actually the real data we should be looking at. What happened post-2020? Bitcoin's kind of been in this different environment post-2020. If you extrapolate the past 2 years of data forward, there's no Bitcoin exchanges by 2028, 2029. So yeah, I don't think we're going to have to wait 100 years to start seeing signs and hints of what is the true purchasing power of Bitcoin.
Okay, hold on. Let's. Bro, Luke literally with a straight face came on the show today and said $7 billion per Bitcoin is reasonable. Couldn't make this up. That is crazy. All right. Let's so you explain the case here. I do kind of want to talk about the controversy around, this retire on Bitcoin with, 10 million sats, 1 million sats, or 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.01 Bitcoin. Why do you think this is playing out? Obviously there's some edgelord contrarians on Twitter, but as you and I know, making content, this does seem to be people, what people are searching on these video platforms. They love this idea. And then you have the flip side of a lot of Bitcoiners, maybe purist Bitcoiners are like, bro, can you stop doing this clickbait stuff? Be a little more realistic. So what's your take on just the actual controversy and not so much the math or, how we get there?
The controversy. I think the only stem of controversy just comes from people who honestly, with all due respect, they just haven't run the numbers. I think a lot of people just don't understand Bitcoin, and they just think Bitcoin is going to be digital gold. And they think the end game for Bitcoin is $500,000 a coin. Obviously, when you run the maths, 0.01 Bitcoin, It's not going to be able to retire you if Bitcoin's just $500,000 a coin and it's just digital gold. Again, there's a lot of people who think that is Bitcoin's end game. So they're looking at how they're looking at a title on YouTube that says retire with 0.1 Bitcoin, and they're saying that's $50,000. You can't retire with that. You're an idiot. But they don't entertain the argument from the other person's perspective. And again, I can see their perspective. They think Bitcoin's just 500K, just $1 million a coin. They think the power law is some gospel. They think it's some scientific prophecy. And I've been very clear from day one. I just don't believe in any of that stuff. I think it's really difficult to be able to model how Bitcoin's going to be adopted. I have no idea how Bitcoin's going to be adopted. But what I think more people need to be paying attention to, what is the max pain? What is the outcome that the least amount of people are prepared for? Because this is always where financial markets go. They always go the way to punish the most amount of people. So
hey Luke, hold on. Your camera died on you.
It's doing the people a service. They don't want to see my
They don't want to see your hair, bro.
Right?
Oh man.
Yeah, and I just think, oh, hello, we're on the computer camera. This is a little bit intimate. I like this. I just think the only controversy really comes from people just being bearish on Bitcoin. That's where I think the controversy comes from. People just think Bitcoin's going to be 500K or $1 million a coin. And again, like CK Snarks from the Human Rights Foundation says, that's the most unlikely outcome. I agree with him. There's 3 outcomes. Bitcoin fails and it goes to 0. There's a bug in the code, or it gets wiped out, or the NSA created Bitcoin and they pull the rug. Again, that's Bitcoin's open source code. There's no bugs or backdoors in Bitcoin. So I think that's incredibly unlikely. That's the first outcome. Bitcoin fails and goes to 0. Second outcome, Bitcoin is just another asset. So it's digital gold. It's 500,000 a coin. It's $1 million a coin. It's maybe $2 million a coin. And it's just some digital gold. It's 20, 30 trillion dollars of market cap. I genuinely think that's the most unlikely outcome. And then there's scenario number 3, and it's all or nothing. Bitcoin becomes the next money of the world. I just believe a lot of Bitcoiners believe that scenario number 2 is where Bitcoin's going to end up. And it's these Bitcoiners who I think are the ones who have the problem with the 0.1 Bitcoin retirement meme, and all of these projections about Bitcoin. I just think they don't understand how technologies get adopted and the history of money. Because I think the history of technology and money shows us very clearly when a superior technology comes along, it completely obsoletes the prior technology. And it's the exact same thing with money. Every single time a superior money comes along, it completely obsoletes the prior money. And I don't even have to entertain the thought of Bitcoin taking all of the $900 trillion of wealth to get to some really crazy bullish numbers. If Bitcoin just captures 30 to 40% of it, you're looking at a Bitcoin price tag of over $100 million per coin. And again, this is just like, I believe this is conservative. Bitcoin just captures 30% of the world's $900 trillion of wealth. Bitcoin's over $100 million a coin. And all of a sudden, what's 10% of a Bitcoin then? It's $10 million. You can retire on that. Even 1% of a Bitcoin, that's $1 million. You can retire in a lot of places around the world with $1 million, with Bitcoin and $100 million a coin. And that's today's dollars, not hyperinflation. That's with the assets in the world today, currently. And I just think most people, I would love your thoughts on this, Opti. I think that's the first reason. I think people are just bearish on Bitcoin. And the second is maybe there's a lot of OGs in this space who spent a lot of time trying to buy as many Bitcoin as possible. They built up a 10 Bitcoin stack, a 20 Bitcoin stack, a 50 Bitcoin stack. And they're like, okay, I've got my generational wealth. And maybe they just don't like the idea of someone also getting generational wealth with such a small amount of Bitcoin and getting to Bitcoin later than them. I don't know. It's my second, maybe, hypothetical thought experiment. But Opti, I'd love your thoughts on this topic, because there is a lot of people who, don't like the retire on Bitcoin ideas. They think they're just hopium. Again, I've laid out my reasoning, my maths, and my thought experiments and my assumptions for why I am so bullish on Bitcoin. I'd love your thoughts, though.
Yeah, well, first of all, I do kind of want to comment on your max pain scenario. I think I like you and I go back and forth a lot, and I've actually never heard. I think you said it a little differently before, but I do love that like flipping of this idea of Max Payne, because when we as Bitcoiners kind of talk about this, we think, you know, Max Payne is just like basically, you know, Bitcoin as a stable coin, essentially what Nico's feeling right now. Everyone's trolling Nico because he's been bearish on the show the last couple of weeks, calling Bitcoin a stable coin. Like for us Bitcoiners, for, you know, the small minority of people that are in Bitcoin, like a stable coin, you know, basically Bitcoin going sideways in fiat terms, like that is Max Payne for us, or even like a prolonged bear market. For the Bitcoin holders, that would be the Max Payne scenario. But I do like how you flip that on the head and you're like, no, the Max Payne scenario is literally all the people that aren't in Bitcoin not seeing Bitcoin rip and not getting that appreciation. Like I love how you flip that. That is, I think, personally, you know, maybe you're starting to make me feel more bullish. I think that I like that Max Payne scenario a lot better. You know, I'm gonna steal that from Luke. Now what my reasoning or why I think there is a controversy. Well, one, you know, as we hear all the time, it's like, hey, you know, we are on YouTube and we are on the social media, and you know we are trying to get people to click on the video, so sometimes you are a little hyperbolic, and I get it. You know, people are tired because I think me and Nico were the first ones to do the retirement meme, and then Luke picked it up, and then literally everyone started doing it. I think Brian Harrington did it for a little bit, and now I feel like it's everywhere that everyone is doing you know, this retirement meme. But people love it, and this is the thing about social media. You know, when you find something that works, you kind of just double down on it, and if people keep watching it, then of course you're going to get more of that content. So maybe on the one hand, it's just kind of like fatigue, topic fatigue. We kind of experienced that with the ETF last year. We're kind of experiencing that now with the SBR. There's just like topic fatigue where you just hear it so much, and everyone always yells at me on the show. They're like, dude, Opti literally says the same thing over and over and over again, and I literally just repeat. Actually, I might have said it differently. I heard this tweet by Svetsky, or rather read this tweet, and he said something on the lines of like, everything has already been said before and we're just repeating it, but the first time it was said, no one heard it. And I was like, damn, like that's a profound way of flipping this. And this is what we're doing here. Like, yes, we constantly get the same message out there so that more people can get it. Because look, if you've been watching the show for a long time, you probably heard this message. You probably say these same things to your friends and family, and you're like, you know, can you guys, you know, dive deeper into the nuance here? And they're like, yeah, we can. But then, you know, like, first of all, I have 45 IQ here. So like, I'm probably not the expert that you want to listen to. And second of all, there's new people that come in and watch the show. And so maybe that's the first one, you know, topic fatigue. But I do like what you said in regards to if someone's been in Bitcoin for so long, it's almost like they're, hold on.
Let it out.
Choking on my saliva over here. If people have been in Bitcoin for what, say, you know, 15, 12, 10 years. You know, I've been here just surprisingly like 8 years, and it seems like it went by, you know, in a blink of an eye. You do think about like all the pain and sacrifice that you had to go through to build up your stack and how it fundamentally shifted your life. And I think there is part of this idea of like kind of pulling the ladder up behind us where people are like, look, you just got into Bitcoin, like keep stacking, like earn your dues, bro. Like you're not going to retire on 1 million sats. You're not going to retire on 10 million sats. And I love how you said it. It's just like, they're just self-reporting that they're really not that bullish on Bitcoin. Because, you know, you know, when I think of my like most bullish predictions, like I think, you know, dollar sat parity is reasonable. Like I think that's a conservative bet in our lifetimes. And if that's the case, you know, 1 million sats will basically equal a millionaire. We've been trolling on Twitter and memeing it for a long time that the real millionaire is acquiring 1 million sats. And at the time when we were doing this, it was like $100 to get 1 million sats. And we're like, yeah, like good meme, guys. But you guys are really smoking the hopium on that one. But now it is almost seemingly coming to fruition. So if we do get to these crazy numbers, I think there will be a lot of people that are butthurt. This idea that like, hey, you know, you got in 10 years after I did, you only bought, you know, 1 million sats, which at the time was $1,500, and yet you are able to live a good life. So I really do like those that take. So when it comes to the controversy, I think just like summing it up, I think a lot of people on social media, and you kind of you see this a lot in the chat, people just like to complain sometimes, like if you find something that works, you double down on it, and you're not going to please everyone. So what's the meme? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. So that's probably why we're seeing it. Most people love it, but there has been recent pushback, which is why I kind of was telling Luke today, like we're gonna frame this whole video on one of Luke's recent controversies, since I have you on today's show. But I love you. Like, I can tell you've actually thought about this, not just running the numbers on how you can retire on 1 million sats, but also the controversy around why people are feeling a certain way. And it could also be bear market fatigue. I think people are just like, we want the price to rip, hey, look, I get it. We're not here for quote unquote the fiat gains, but hey, we all want to increase our purchasing power. I don't think these these are separate ideas, but I think it's just like a bear market fatigue. We see this during every bear cycle that I've been in. Bitcoiners are very prone to eating their own, and we're kind of seeing this as well with this whole op return controversy, which I covered on yesterday's show. It's like, people just want something to do, and the best thing to do is just tear other Bitcoiners apart. Like, we no longer have to tear shitcoiners apart because they're just irrelevant here. So we just tear each other apart now and like call each other shitcoiners now. Like, people have been calling me a shitcoiner on the show, and I'm like, just because we have some, some engaging titles here, like I'm a shitcoiner now. This is crazy. Like, I literally sacrificed everything for going Bitcoin only, and now I'm a shitcoiner. It's just funny, man. What's it? Time is a flat circle, or whatever the meme is. Yeah. Anyways, I'm rambling here. I'm just kind of having a conversation with Luke at this point. But hey, we got some more time. If you want to get even more bullish, rip it.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to your point there, I think topic fatigue, a lot of people get bored with Bitcoin when the price goes sideways for so long. I think to the point about topic fatigue, I think there's been a lot of, smaller channels who have seen that the retirement idea on YouTube is a really good idea. And I think there's a lot of people who do way too many podcasts and they do way too many shows, and they just they'll interview someone, a sports star, and they'll title it like retire on Bitcoin, and they don't even talk about retire on Bitcoin. It's just complete clickbait. So I think a lot of people also, there's like that topic fatigue. They're like, oh, I'm just getting clickbaited about this idea, and they're not giving me something new in the video. Again, I've made a ton of videos looking at how you can retire on Bitcoin, but in each one, I'm going to run different numbers. I'm going to look at different assumptions. I'm going to look at different calculations, because at the end of the day, that's why I think it's such an interesting topic. Everybody's different. There's 8 billion people in the world. Everybody's at different age ranges. Everybody lives in different countries. You need a different amount of money or Bitcoin to retire in each country around the world, which is even more crazy and even more interesting. Now, you just challenged me, Opti, get more bullish. Well, on this topic, recently I've lived in Peru for probably the past 7 months continuously. I do a lot of traveling, but Peru is my home base. And I was orange pilling a local Peruvian, and we're kind of talking about, I was telling them like, look, 0.1 Bitcoin, it's going to make you incredibly rich in the future. And I wanted to put like some numbers behind it. I always like to put numbers behind everything. It helps people visualize and understand things better. And I was shocked, absolutely shocked at what I found from the research I found. It wasn't super in depth, but there's only like 130 or 140 people in the country of Peru with more than $1 million in net worth. So think about that for a minute. The country is 20 million people. There's literally like 100 people who own $1 million worth of assets. Think about that. Like if Bitcoin, again, conservatively gets to around $1 million in the future, you can own 1 Bitcoin. You could be in the country of Peru, and you'd be like a 1 in a 10,000 person. Think about that for a minute. It's mind-boggling when you think about being able to retire on such a small amount of Bitcoin and then moving to a different country. I mean, yes, cost of living in the West is insane, but there's 100 people in the whole country of Peru, 20 million people here, that own $1 million worth of assets. Think about that for a minute. Again, a lot of people, even the bearish people, they think, okay, maybe Bitcoin will get to $1 million. Well, think about that. If you own 1 Bitcoin and you move to Peru and Bitcoin's at $1 million a coin, you're like a 1 in 100,000 person? No, you'd be a 1 in a 10. You'd be 1 in a 10,000 people. So the 10,000 people you walk past every day or every week, there'd only be one other person who has the same amount of Bitcoin or the same amount of wealth as you. So again, I think the big hack here is obviously Bitcoin. I genuinely believe it's going to solve the biggest problem in the world, which is the retirement problem. There is a retirement crisis in the world. Recently, I actually filmed a video looking at Australia's most recent proposal to tax their superannuation accounts. That's our retirement accounts with a 30% unrealized capital gains. Think about that for a minute. So if you have 3 million Australian cuckbucks, that's only like 1.6 or 1.7 million US dollars, by the way. If you got 1.6 or 1.7 million US dollars in your retirement account, those potentially are going to be taxed with 30% unrealized capital gains every year. It's pretty wild. I genuinely do believe the reason why people are so interested in, this topic of retiring on Bitcoin is because it answers the biggest problem in the world. There's 8 billion people in the world who cannot retire. Bitcoin is the solution to that problem. So again, another little bit of bullishness here, Opti. Again, you can have financial sovereignty with Bitcoin, but I believe you can supercharge your sovereignty stack, so to say, by also taking advantage of the geographical sovereignty that is available to all 8 billion people on the planet today. You can literally move to whatever country you want to move to, set yourself up legally to not pay taxes, and you can upgrade your lifestyle by 10x. And you can retire with 10x less Bitcoin by moving to one of these countries. So again, financial sovereignty with Bitcoin, take advantage of geographical sovereignty, become a digital nomad. If you can work from anywhere around the world, why not take advantage of that and go and upgrade your lifestyle early? Anyway, some more bullish thoughts for the guys here, Opti. What do you think?
Incredible. I love it. I don't think I've heard it in that phrasing of Bitcoin solves one of the biggest problems in the world today, and that is retirement. Like, I think that's a good spin here, because I mean, we've all heard fix the money, fix the world, but we kind of at times don't think about it in like the human element. Like, why do we need to fix the money? Is so that people can live a good life. And you can see that as the elderly population gets older, one of the biggest things that I see around, it's like, I think I've said it on the show, one of my biggest fears is like, one, having really bad posture as an old guy. And then two, like having to, flip burgers when I'm like 80 years old. Like, if this doesn't work out, your boy's flipping burgers forever. And those things absolutely terrify me. And we're seeing that there is a whole, a good portion of the older generation now that just completely got ripped off by the fiat system, 2008 financial crisis, and just continue to get fleeced. And it's absolutely horrible. And this is why we constantly talk about it. It's like, yo, you just need to buy some Bitcoin. Maybe if you're 80 years old, buying Bitcoin today isn't going to necessarily change your life, because who knows how much longer you have. But it will change your, grandchildren's lives or even like your kids. So I really like that framing that Bitcoin solves. Well, obviously, Bitcoin solves a lot of problems here. It doesn't fix everything, but it does solve and address a lot of problems. And one of them is retirement, as we've been saying on the show for a long time. Like Bitcoin allows for the American dream to happen everywhere. Like it brings back the American dream of have if you're an American, like the white picket fence, the family, that. Some might say that fantasy that we live in now, because our generation, Luke and I are similar age. Where I don't know if you're you're younger, you're mid-20s, right? I'm mid-30s, and people in my generation, most of my friends have nothing, literally nothing, and I don't think many of them even think about like buying a house, owning a house. I know some friends do have houses and stuff and families, but the majority of my friends in my generation, and I think the statistics follow this, they own literally nothing. They're still living paycheck to paycheck. And this is a huge, huge concern, growing concern as we get older. We are literally the poorest generation in a long time. And that's not like being a victim or complaining about it. It's just acknowledging the statistics. So I love that. Bitcoin fixes retirement. I think we hit the nail on the head, Luke. I think this is why this topic works so well, is people are searching for this stuff, and people want to escape the fiat system, escape their jobs, and do something better with their lives. So love it. Anyways, Luke, last words before we wrap up today. Are we scooping at the bottom of the jar here? Is there anything left? What's the final message you want to give to the audience?
You can never scoop the bottom of the jar of my bullishness, my friend. I have all sorts of rabbit holes I could go into, but I won't for the sake of everybody listening in today. Yeah, I think I just genuinely believe that's the summation of everything. Like, Bitcoin is the solution to the world's biggest problem, and it's a retirement crisis. Again, there's billions of people in poverty around the world. They're not necessarily in poverty because they don't work hard. A lot of people in Africa, South America, and all across Asia, they're in poverty because they can't save their money in something that's actually going to retain value, and it's going to have value when they retire. They're on a perpetual hamster wheel. And again, it's for a lot of these guys, it's until 2008, it's been really difficult to opt out of that system. But now we have Bitcoin. This is why you have an obsession with all of these different online hustles, like technical analysis, trading courses, and, drop shipping, and all of these other, just strange obsessions with how to make money online. I think they're all kind of, symptoms of the lower problem. The lower problem is the base money's broken, and Bitcoin's a solution to that. Final thoughts. Most people need far less Bitcoin than they probably think. Buy your Bitcoin today.
Read this comment. Or
got that one set. Maybe one day. I might run the numbers behind Peter Dunworth's hypothetical thought experiment, but hey, who knows? Maybe not. Maybe one sat's too far. Maybe in 200 years or 300 years.
That is true clickbait scammer stuff there. Again, guys, it's 32 sats is generational wealth. So one sat, maybe that's a year of income. No, I'm trolling. Actually, there's one last comment I do want to see mention. It's on Rumble over here. Our boy UTXO, he goes here. I'll pull it up right here. He goes. UTXO goes, Opti's friends own nothing, but are they happy? Oh, that's a good one, UTXO. That's a good one. All right, guys. Well, this was Friday, May 2nd, episode, I think, 1236. Of course, this was our boy Luke, the most bullish Bitcoin content creator in the game. He's got a YouTube channel. You'll be seeing him more often on the show, guys. I don't know if it's going to be every Friday, but we're gonna get Luke on a lot more. Go follow him on Twitter, Luke MIkic, MIkic 21. And thanks for coming on, man. That was fun. I had a great time. Some Friday hopium for everyone. So let me pull you off screen, Luke, and then I will wrap up the show. Oh, wait, actually, I'm not done. My job is not done here. I have to remind you guys, we are taking over Vegas, and the price is increasing in 13 hours. So you better get your tickets, guys. We're trying to get Luke there, but, he's a digital nomad, so he might not get there. He's having some trouble. But we're taking over Vegas. We will be down there. We're going to have a booth on the floor. So if you are going to Vegas, make sure you come, say what's up. I think we're going to be doing I think we're probably going to do the live show from the floor if we figure out all the AV technicals. Anyways, it is coming up in May 27th through the 29th in Las Vegas at the Venetian. We are taking over Vegas for the world's largest Bitcoin event. I think this year is going to be huge. It feels like if the price starts running, I feel like this is going to be a huge event. So you guys definitely want to be there. Love what they do. They do a great job. Anyways, on that note, guys, it's your boy Opti. Nico is not here because he wasn't being lazy. He was actually working. I think you guys are going to like this IRL that he's dropping. I haven't seen it yet, but apparently it's going to be super sexy, guys. So I'll see you on Monday. On that note, guys, peace out. Have a good weekend. Touch some grass, eat some good food, call your loved ones, get a workout in, all that good stuff. Peace.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.